Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. I'm Dennis Wirth. This is Funny Like a Clown podcast, and it is February 20th, 2020. This is episode 51, right after the big 50 that we did. As always, Funny Like a Clown podcast is brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce. For the spicy, sweet, savory taste at game time, there's only one, G Vegas. And, who don't like a good buffalo sauce? But you want to go homemade, anything homemade's better. Go green. Go to www.gvegas.webs.com. Buy yourself a ship right to your door. You don't have to go to the grocery store. You just do it right on your computer. But we are here to discuss comedians. And today, I guess we're discussing a comedian with a cult following, Emo Philips. And to do that, we have another Boston comedian with a cult following. I'm one of his followers. Scott MaCneil, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you for being on.
Glad to be here.
So you're actually on my second return guest on Funny Like a Clown podcast. First time we discussed Stephen Wright, and this time we're discussing Emo Philips. What made you choose him?
Well, I love anything that's clever. Any kind of twist on things or a surprise.
He's different.
Very different, very different. And I think sometimes people don't always give him a try because they don't always like the voice that he uses on stage.
Right.
But I think he's pretty genuine. And
now, how long have you followed? You followed this guy a long time. How long have you followed him for?
Well, I think he kind of dates back somewhere around when Stephen Wright started. So I think mid-'80s, anyway, something like that, mid-late 80s.
So close to 30 years then, right?
Yeah, well, kind of off and on, not always steady, but yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the time, I mean, I know you. How many times have you seen him? You've really followed the guy around with a bunch of shows. How many times would you say you've
Well,
seen
more
him?
since I've started doing comedy. I've probably seen him about 3-4 times, and usually get to say hello to him, get pictures and whatnot.
All right, so
Yeah.
I mean, you've gone to Comic-Cons too, or something, right? Where you got pictures with him, or something like that.
No, just when he was performing.
When he was performing
I've been to a
after
lot of
shows?
Comic-Cons, but I haven't seen him.
Okay, so that shows. So, I mean, in following him and all of his comedy, all of his humor, all the interaction you've had, do you have a favorite memory with him, or?
Well, my favorite memory was actually at the Boston Comedy Festival, and it was, I believe, November 2016. And it was general seating, which I was grateful for.
Got to get there early.
Get there early. I think I was first in line. And usually, like at a movie theater, I like to sit dead center and take in the movie. But this time I sat right up front by the microphone, like I could reach out and just touch it.
Right.
And I brought a camera, and they announced, do you mind me telling, you don't mind me telling the story? That's
Tell
what
whatever
it's
you want.
about,
Yeah,
right?
tell whatever you
Well,
want.
why would I withhold anything
That's
during
right.
a Funny Like a Clown podcast? So,
Let it all out.
So I brought in my real camera, and they said no flash photography, and I'm a very literal person, so I was like, okay, so regular photography's okay.
You'd think.
So I didn't hold it up because I didn't want to bother everyone behind me, so I just
Disturb
kind
the
of put it in
audience.
front of me and got a few pictures. And I was wearing a t-shirt that said Boston Comedy Festival, and I had the lanyard with my name on it. And partway through, he stopped what he was doing, and he pointed to me. He said, "Are you part of the festival?" And I said, "No, I applied to be in it to compete, but they turned me down this year." He said, "But you're a comedian." And he's like, "Yeah." So he said, "But you're a comedian, but you're not working right now." So he was kind of teasing me a bit.
Right,
I'm like,
yeah.
Just pulling my chain.
Yeah.
And then he surprised me and said, "Well, if you're a comic, why don't you come up here and tell us one of your jokes?" So to me, that's like being a Beatles fan.
And a rush went through your head when he said that, right?
My eye, that was a few years ago. My eyes are still dilated.
Yeah, right. Well,
But I told the joke, and of course, typical of me, I was there by myself, and my camera's sitting on the chair next to me. And I'm like, oh, this is brutal. This is such a bittersweet thing because
you want a picture so
I want
bad.
a picture.
You
Someone
get one.
pick it up for God's sake. So when he finished, he's very accommodating of posing for pictures and that sort of thing. So he told the audience, he said, "I've got a second show tonight, but I'll be out back if someone wants a." So there's a huge line of people, and I'm like, well, I want to be last. Sometimes the last person gets the most attention.
Right.
And there's this young lady there. And I was telling her, I'm like, oh, there was such a rush to go on stage, and the audience was wonderful. And
Touching
all that.
one of your heroes, yeah.
Yeah, so, and I said, I don't have one darn picture of that moment. And she was like, well, I think I got some good news for you. He had me use my smartphone, and I videoed it. I'm like, you've got it on video?
Ooh.
So to cut through that, she said, well, I'll ask him, and I got permission, so I have it as YouTube video.
So they can go on YouTube and check it out. You put what? Scott MaCneil, Emo Phillips, and it'll pop up?
Exactly.
Well, let's hope we get you some hits from our Funny Like a Clown podcast listeners.
The icing on that cake for that night was like, it couldn't get any better.
Right.
And while I was waiting for the picture, I was talking with this young woman, and Stephen Wright walked in, my other idol.
Oh, because they're friends, right? Yeah.
Well, they know of each other, but he wasn't performing. He just happened to be there for something else.
Oh.
So I was like, I'm begging you. I know him a little bit. I said, could you, Emo's going to do a picture with me. So I got a picture of me standing in between them, and I'm like.
So now, all the interaction you've had with Emo Philips, when he sees you, does he recognize you, or?
I might look familiar, but he doesn't.
He don't know you by name?
No.
Okay. So when he pulled you up there, I know you do one-liners there quick. What was the one joke you told when he pulled you up there?
I did one that, I went with more of a surefire one that people like. It's, I have a prescription to treat my obsessive compulsive disorder. It's of course, it's a 1 milligram pill, and I take it 1,000 times a day.
And that's close to what Emo does, is kind of odd stuff like that, right? So that was a good one. Well, let's get into it here.
Right.
He's known for a confused, childlike delivery in his comedy, appearing fidgety, nervous, and possibly mentally disturbed at times on stage. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that could summarize him, sure.
He's known for a 70s appearance, and sometimes he don't just sit still like most comics do on stage. He walks around, and he's been known to get half undressed while he's taking a joke back in the day and stuff. And I mean, do you ever get undressed during your routine, or not that?
Only at home when I'm practicing. But,
only when you're practicing.
One of his things too is he has very deep pockets. I mean, they come down below his knee.
Okay.
So sometimes part of his thing is to distract the audience and think he's going somewhere with it, while he's telling one joke after another. He might be wearing 5 shirts, and he'll slowly take off one after another and crumple them up and shove them in his pockets.
I wonder how many he's got.
And he'll get down to one shirt. And like, okay, where's he going with it? And then he just reverses it. And years ago, he used to have like I forget if it was a trumpet or a trombone or something, and he'd bring the case on stage, and while he's telling a joke, or several jokes, he's slowly assembling it, like he's getting ready to play. And like, all right, what kind of song is he going to play? And then he just disassembles it and puts it away.
That's it, okay. Now, do you think it's smart having like a persona? Like, I go back to like Andy Kaufman that played Lodka in Taxi. It was an all-time beloved character, but that wasn't the real him. I mean, he wasn't a foreign guy in real life. It was a character he did, and we got a guy, I guess, plays in Lana Susko's room sometime, Comedy on Purpose. His name is what, Fagit? He does a foreigner, so I mean, is that anything you ever thought about doing, is having a persona in comedy, or? I
guess more of my stage presence and, the sound of my voice, and to try to have the right timing and pause, and especially if there's a key word, if you can have it last. And I think that's what Emo and Steve will do, is if you have that one word that unlocks the thing.
Timing's everything, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. He's put out 3 albums. E equals Mo over the Second Power, recorded at Caroline's in Manhattan. Won in 1985 the New Music Award for Best Comedy Album. Live at the Hasty Pudding Theater. And in 2000, a self-titled one, Emo. Have you heard any of his albums, or do you have them? Or
I have at least 2 of them, and I have them personally autographed in silver on the covers of them. And interesting you mentioned the Hasty Pudding one, because I went on eBay some time ago, and I could only find it on VHS as the video version of it.
Way back then, that's all they had, yeah.
So he autographed it to me, and he put something like, Scott, I'm sure eventually someday this format will return. Using a VHS tape.
Yeah.
So I asked him, I said, well, how come you don't have it out on DVD? And he said, because I don't own the rights to it, and I can't find the guy who does.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, it's kind
well, a lot of people do that. I mean, when you put out an album, you can either get more money up front, let them keep the rights, or less money up front, you keep the rights. Now, if it's a big hit, if you keep the rights, you're smart, but if it's not a big hit, you're better off to get the money up front.
Well, I think it's been a hit, but he doesn't know who it is.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's like around 1986, so whoever involved with the Hasty Pudding, I'd like to find them and help.
Give Emo a call, he's looking for you, right? Okay, now here's one. One of his jokes was actually voted the funniest religious joke of all time.
Ah,
and
that's a great joke.
funny enough, when when they voted it the #1 joke of all time, he actually wrote in an article that they didn't give him credit for it being his joke.
Oh.
He had to let him know later, hey, that's my joke, man.
Typical of comedy, right?
But it was a pretty long joke, which, I mean, I don't know, do you remember the joke?
I do.
Could you recite it word for word?
No, but I know it in very general.
The gist of it, yeah.
Should we tell them a little bit about it?
I don't know, what do you think? Should we make them Google it, or should we tell them? Well, tell them a little bit, don't give it all away, but I mean.
Right, it's basically, it's kind of, like a lot of his jokes, kind of dark. But he encounters him and is getting ready to jump off a bridge and leap to his death. And Emo is trying to intervene, but he does it in a buffoon kind of way where he misspeaks and kind of insults the guy a bit. And he asks the guy if he's a religious person. And then he asks him if he's a Christian. The guy says yes. He's like, well, you're a Christian, you're a Jew. And they go through this agonizing
on and on and on
of what type of religion with great specificity. And I guess you have to watch it to see the ending.
They were so close, then at the end it was a little bit off, and you got to see the ending of that. But it's worth Googling. It wasn't voted the best, religious joke of all time for nothing.
I didn't know it was voted that though. So
yeah, but I mean, not giving. Can you imagine having a joke voted the best and not giving you credit? I bet, hey, you're forgetting something here, But let's see. He actually did some acting too. Now here's one I didn't know because I was a fan of the show. He was actually on Miami Vice back in the day.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
I didn't know that either until I read it. Yeah, and I was a fan of Miami Vice too. But a lot of the people, they weren't stars back then, so you don't realize at the time watching them. And this many years later, you go back, he was on that. No way, but you don't recognize him at the time.
Well, I think it was early 2000s. He changed his look because he has like a Beatles mop top that went wrong the way it's cut because it's cut on the slope.
70s, right? Like an armor shoot almost.
And then you'd have to Google it, Google images.
Spike did it for a short time.
Yeah, and no one recognized him, so then he went back to that.
The old one. Let's see, he was on the Weird Al show, and he was on British TV's 8 out of 10 Cats. Do you remember any of those shows or no? You're not in Britain, so you probably don't remember 8 out of 10 Cats, right?
No, I didn't see
He
that
was
one.
Actually big over in Britain. He was bigger in Britain than he was in America, actually, for a time.
You know who he married?
Who did he marry?
He married Judy Tenuta.
Judy Tenuta, another comedian, okay.
And I guess they had a very good divorce.
Yeah, don't we all? I've been through that, yeah.
Is that the only way to have one,
yeah,
right?
I go to Bill Burr's joke there. They thought 3 out of 5 marriages end in divorce. They told you 3 out of 5 parachutes weren't going to open when you went skydiving. You wouldn't do it.
You know the other one too? You know why divorces cost so much?
Why?
Because they're worth it.
Yeah, right, yeah. All right, let's see. He did some voiceover work also, Emo Philips did. He did Dr. Katz, he did Professional Therapist, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Slacker Cats, and Adventure Time. Do you know him for any of those voiceover work?
I don't. But we have a mutual friend in common who can do his voice.
Rich McCabe?
You got it.
I was going to mention that because, Emo, he don't have a mainstream following. He has a cult following.
Right.
And Rich McCabe, he's a comedian out of Shirley, Mass. that we both know. He actually bought a wig that looked like Emo and did deadpan spot on. He was doing an imitation of Emo Philips. The problem was, if we did a show with 100 people, he'd say, does anybody know Emo Philips? And about 2 people out of 100 would say, yeah, me. So you got 98 people who don't know what you're talking about doing the joke and 2 that do. So he had to drop it out of his routine because Emo's got more of a cult following than a mainstream following. But you did see it. He was spot on with that, I thought.
I've seen him do it as a friend, but I didn't know he had the wig.
Oh, yeah, he really got into it for a while, but where nobody was responding. I mean, if you knew who Emo was, you'd crack up laughing, but unfortunately, not everybody does. But I'm like that with Carl LeBove. I was a Sam Kinison fan, was his best friend Carl LeBove. He was a original outlaw comedy. To me personally, that's a comedy idol to me, but if I asked anybody else, you know who Carl LeBove is? Like, who? Yeah, I mean... So if you're into him, you get it. If you're not, then you don't.
Can I share one of my favorite Emo jokes?
Go ahead.
His jokes are usually kind of dark. People don't always like that, but doesn't bother me. Anyways,
everybody gets offended. I don't even try. Somebody's offended by everything. You tell it if you're offended.
I'm kind of paraphrasing it. He said, I almost didn't get a second date with my girlfriend because I didn't hold the car door for her. He said, instead I just opted to swim for the surface.
Oh, geez, we're underwater, huh?
Exactly.
I thought he was going to pull a Dukes of Hazzard or something, go through the window. But well, here's one I guess a lot of people remember him for feature films that he did. He was in Weird Al Yankovic's UHF. Did you see that?
Yes, and I think he called himself, he did a thing, Mr. Butterfingers. Did you see that?
I never did see the movie, so explain it to the people about his role in UHF.
Well, I think it was from that movie, but it was him interacting with Weird Al. They're good friends, and sometimes they tour together. and he was doing a thing like a home improvement, like a Norm Abrams, This Old House, and he said, today I want to talk about the safety of using and Weird Al spoke up and said table saw, and he's like, okay.
That's what you want? Go ahead, sure, yeah.
So pretends he's firing it up, and I don't know how they did it, but he's running a piece of wood through, and he's got safety goggles on, and while he's pushing the wood through, he turns and he's looking at Weird Al. He's not looking at what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's talking about safety.
Watch your fingers.
And he slices his thumb right off.
Gee.
And he's like, I don't remember his words, but he's like, oh, the dickens, I lost my thumb. And he's like, look at that. And he had a hose with blood.
Oh, okay.
So and he's like, he pointed it to himself, and someone on his face shows fake blood. And he's like, oh boy, is my face red?
So what was the premise of the whole movie UHF?
I actually didn't see the whole movie.
Oh, you didn't see the whole movie? His part.
I put his name into Google and saw that scene.
Saw his scene, okay, right. All right, a couple other movies he was in was Desperation Boulevard and Meet the Parents. Do you remember either one of those, or?
I didn't see Meet the Parents. I know it was a popular movie. I know he...
Was that with Steve Martin, right? He did Meet the Parents, I think? Well,
I think so.
Possibly I'm wrong, but I might have seen it.
He was also in a movie. I bought the movie, Journey to the Center of the Earth, to see Emo.
Way back then. Wow, that's an old movie.
I think it was a remake. He might
have
done.
Remake he did. Okay. The original was like early 70s, I remember. Yeah.
But I watched the whole movie, and I never recognized his face or his voice, so I still don't know where he is in that movie.
All right, let's see. Now, you mentioned, you touched on this a little bit earlier. In 2001, he dropped his persona to appeal to a younger audience, where he used to have the haircut from the 70s and do the awkward, quirky stuff on stage. And he spiked his hair and went with a different look. But, I mean, I'm a fan of Andrew Dice Clay's, and when he first came out, he did the rhymes. And then later on, he did them so much, he dropped them because everybody said he didn't do new material. But nowadays, when people go see Andrew Dice Clay, they want to relive their childhood. They want him to do the rhymes because they want to relive. And I think it was the same thing with Emo, where the younger generation didn't accept him, and he alienated the older audience because they wanted to see that persona. So now he's alienated everybody. And in 2005, he returned to it. He actually dropped the new stuff and went back to his old persona, and he started selling out bigger shows when he did. So what's your opinion on that? Was that a smart move, a risky move?
Well, I think we all have to experiment. I mean, at least he'll have peace of mind that he tried it, whether it worked or not. I think we all experiment as comics as to what works for us, and that's it. But someone else in comedy was telling me that one of the sad flaws for Emo, because he was a big name, especially in the late '80s and in the '90s. He was really well known, and apparently he moved to Europe or something, and Judy wasn't his only divorce. He had 2 or 3 divorces for him.
A few others,
and I think he, that's tough on anybody.
Takes a lot out of you, absolutely.
And financially, I guess it was quite devastating. And I think he's married now. I don't know who he's married to, but he seems to be happy.
Hopefully he's happily married. That's the key.
Sometimes I think we all learn from these big mistakes.
As you get older, you learn your life lessons. You can't live in the past, you got to live in the future.
First, you got to find out what doesn't work before you know what does.
You know what does, right? But so, what was your first exposure to Emo? How did you first? Somebody's calling us.
Tough to be popular.
That's right. See, they already want to get funny like on. But how did you first get exposed to Emo Philips? Where, I mean, he's got a cult following, not mainstream. But where did you first see him?
Well, I vaguely remember during that time period, I was living in southern Florida, down near the Everglades.
Okay.
So I must have seen him on late night TV. I don't know if it was Johnny Carson, if he would have had him on, or where he.
All right, so it was TV you first.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I remember I first got exposed to him before anybody else knew who he was. Howard Stern actually gave him really good props, had him on regularly back before he was really big and popular. That was where I first got exposed to him, was on there. He was doing some interviews on there. Let's see, in 2010 he was part of the Austin, Texas Comedy Festival and 24/7 Comedy. This was after he made his comeback after bringing his old persona back, so he started to get on to bigger shows once he started doing his old persona again. So where was it that you seen him perform the few times that you seen him?
The first time I saw him was, what's the name of the one up in...
The Wilbur?
No, this was up in New Hampshire.
Oh, New Hampshire.
This was Manchester on... is it not the Paradise?
I'm not sure.
It begins with a P. It's an old theater from like 1920.
Yeah, I think David Lee Roth just played there recently. I can't think of the name either. But
yeah, it was 2000.
So it was up in New Hampshire where you seen him, yeah?
My first time, yeah.
First time?
Yeah, it was very nice. And if anything, he spends too much time with each person after the show. I mean, I'm not going to complain for myself.
Yeah,
but
right.
I think for his own sake, he kind of exhausts
But
himself.
I hate those people who forget where they come from. Those aggravate me. I always say, if I ever made it big, don't. Even Gabriel Iglesias said, I don't turn into a prick when if you want a picture with me, I'd be honored to take a picture with you. So I think, we were down at the Gotham, right? And Jerry Seinfeld and Jim Gaffigan were there. And Jim Gaffigan walked in, and you guys seen him. Oh, sorry, busy guys. He just kept walking.
Oh yeah,
right?
well actually we're walking with Rob Steen, and I didn't know Jim Gaffigan walked by us in the dark going the other way.
Yeah.
And Rob Steen was like, "Hey Scott, that's Jim Gaffigan. He's like 125 feet away." And I just impulsively yelled out, "Jim, it's me, Scott." And I waited. He turned around. And he's like, "Hey, great to see you. I gotta be someplace. I'll check up with you later." So,
yeah, I seen him inside. Jerry was the coolest
Oh,
cat.
that's right.
He
You were
talked to us
performing that
great.
at Gotham. Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld was the coolest cat, and he was freaking out. I'm getting recognized. I'm getting out of here. I'm getting recognized. Bolted out the door. I'm like, big deal. I'd be flattered I'm getting recognized. What's the problem? But everybody handles success differently, I guess. Now you mentioned this also that in 2018 he toured with Weird Al. Did you happen to see that one when he was touring Weird Al?
Yeah, I went. I think that was the year I paid like. It's almost embarrassing. I paid like $300 because I mainly wanted to get a picture with both of them together and their autographs, and that's what I paid for was the meet and greet and this sort of thing. And I watched the show, and it was a little bit of emo, but it was mainly Weird Al, and
he's the headliner, obviously.
Yeah. And then when it ended, Emo went out a side door with some comics that you and I might know to go have coffee.
Right.
And I got an autograph from Weird Al, and I'm like...
You didn't get your picture, right?
Yeah, I'm like, what the heck? So I actually put in a complaint. I said, I want half of my money back. I'm not the type, I'm a person of integrity. I'm like, all right,
I got something, right?
So I want half
not what you paid for.
And the credit card company got confused. I made many calls on it, and I got all my money back. I'm like, I don't want all my money back. So a weird argument, but...
All right, so at least you got some of your money back, and they were honest on that. Where I went to Rhode Island Comic-Con, I played to get picture taken with a bunch of people. I didn't get my picture, and they didn't give me any of my money back. So screw Rhode Island Comic-Con, don't go there. But let's see. As of today, he's actually on the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised vanity tour with Weird Al Yankovic. That's the one that we just talked about.
I like a nice short title like that.
Yeah, there's a remember one right there.
Good thing they abbreviated it.
Absolutely, but getting toward the end of the podcast, I mean, you're a big fan of his. I'll give you the stage here. What would you want other people to know about Emo?
I think too, you really need to check out more than one of his videos and give him a chance because he, like you were saying, I forget your words, but he kind of comes off like a buffoon and foolish.
Right.
But he's a highly intelligent person. I don't, like any celebrity, I don't love everything he does, but I love most of what he does. And very clever. Very insightful, and I think too he exaggerates how ridiculous people can be, and I think sometimes you can learn from comedy by, don't do the stupid things we're talking about. Do the opposite.
Right. It's a great release. Yeah, laughter is the best medicine.
But I think he's terrible at promoting himself. Like that hasty pudding. He should strike a deal, find out who that person is, and release the DVD. But just because he's not good at the merchandising or whatever doesn't mean you shouldn't check him out. There's plenty of videos and all that. Once you dial into his formula, you'll probably be like me and like, hey, this guy's cool. He's really smart.
Well, he's actually, some comics do have a cult following, where they could do more, they don't, because they enjoy their cult following and understand what they did, where if they got into a bigger following, it'd be a bunch of people that don't understand what they do as well, not connect. I mean, have you found out, I found the most fun I ever had in comedy was doing open mics. You're with your friends, you're having fun, you're trying to get better. Then when I started to move up in the business, it became more of a business and less fun. And I was having less fun doing the bigger shows than I did the open mics. It turned into work, and it was, so...
Well, tied in with that, too, after one of his shows, I was talking with him, and I said, I take it as a huge compliment when after a show, someone will tell me that usually it's number one, that my humor reminds them of Stephen Wright, and number two, Emo Philips. And he spoke right up and he put his hands on like this. He said, don't do it Emo's way, there's no money in it. Whatever Stephen Wright's doing, do it that way. So
everything's not about money, though. Money can't buy happiness, that's true. All right, we got a few fan questions. You want to go to the fan questions?
I am ready. I look forward to this.
All right, let's see. Well, we discussed it. Robert Remenko being in that great movie UHF. So, I mean, Weird Al has a big following. If he ever put out a big big budget movie, I mean, it'd go through the roof. He's got such a big following.
Sure.
But if you're in a movie like that, it's quite the honor to be in.
And he's a nice guy too. Very nice, humble to meet him.
Yeah, right. Let's see. Wes Martin's hosting for Emo and sharing a burrito after the show with him. Do you remember Wes Martin's hosting the show that you were at, or?
I know him. He's a funny guy.
Yeah.
That guy drives all over the place, and he's really on
Comedy,
top
you
of his
gotta get around,
comedy. Yeah.
But I mean, that's cool. I mean, to go out with a local comic and grab a burrito, you know, it shows, you know, he's not just hanging out with big stars or nothing like that.
Hopefully they are two separate burritos.
All right, I don't get this one. Maybe you do. John Schaefer writes in, he's like a male Edna mode. A male Edna mode.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Who the hell is Edna?
I have no idea.
Way to go, John Schaefer.
I knew what we were talking about.
Well, even the punchline to his big religious joke there was what? At the end it was...
Die, you heretic.
Die, you heretic. I mean, I didn't know what the hell heretic meant. I had to Google it before I finally understood the joke. Once I Googled it, it was funny, but I didn't know what it meant. But,
and I learned things, like you say, too, from when he did a joke and he referred to Archimedes. Never heard of him before.
Right.
So I had to look that up.
He's a thinking man's comic, I know.
Exactly.
Some people, you just regularly do it and regularly don't. All right, you've been a guest before, as you know. We had every Funny Like a Clown podcast with trivia.
Uh-oh.
Trivia. We got 3 trivia questions in here. 51 episodes. No one's ever gone 3 for 3 on trivia. Only a couple people have gotten 2 right.
I think I'd be lucky to go 1 for 3.
Most people get 1 or none right. What did you do with Stephen Wright? Do you remember? How many did you get right then? Did you get any right or no?
I think I had some electroshock therapy treatment to block it out. I don't remember.
Let's see how we do here. You ready?
I'm as ready as gonna be.
Emo Philips says, oh, hang on, we got one more comment. You want to see one more comment before we start?
I love it. I'm ready.
Bill Sonyer writes, sometimes I like to go down to the playground and watch all the little kids running and screaming. Of course, they don't realize I'm only using blanks. Okay? Did you remember that joke?
I love that joke, yeah.
All right, let's get to the trivia. Number 1, Emo Philips has a self-proclaimed obsession with what? What is he obsessed with?
Oh, coleslaw.
Coleslaw it is.
I got 1
on that one. 1 for 1. Well, the other 2 might be easy.
Could be gravy from here on in.
All right, I'm going to start one of his jokes and see if you know the punchline. Ready? A computer once beat me at chess, but...
It couldn't beat me at kickboxing.
Kickboxing, you are 2 for 2. You may be the first one who goes 3 for 3. We'll see. All right. The third joke. Not everyone hates me. What's the punchline? Not everyone hates me.
Okay, I guess I'm 2 for 3.
2 for 3?
I don't know.
Not everyone hates me, only the people who met me. I thought that one was
How about
good.
the bicycle one? Did you see that one?
What's the bicycle one?
He said, as a little, I'm paraphrasing, he said, as a boy, I used to pray and pray that God would give me a bicycle. Then I realized one day the Lord in His infinite wisdom doesn't work that way, so I just stole one and asked Him to forgive me.
And I didn't know that was his joke, and I actually seen another comic do it locally.
Oh, really?
He stole the joke, and I didn't realize it was stolen until I read, hey, that's Emo's joke, not yours. Yeah, well, actually, this one ain't part of the trivia. I did to do the trivia. I looked at a bunch of his jokes, and this was my favorite one. He said he was at a restaurant once, and he dropped his fork, and the waiter bought him a new fork, so he pushed his girlfriend off the chair. I cracked up at that. All right. That's my favorite Emo joke.
Yes.
All right, well, Scott, I want to thank you for being on Funny Like a Clown podcast.
Thank you, sir.
Great interview.
An
Check
honor
out
and a
Emo
privilege.
Philips. Check out Scott MaCneil. And,
especially on YouTube. Hit the like button.
Well, you've been on fire lately. You've been what? You've opened for Gilbert Gottfried, Lenny
Second
Clark,
time,
Steve Sweeney.
Yep.
You're in Fuego, so maybe sometime you get the cult status like Emo Philips,
Well,
right?
I'm old enough that my goal of comedy is to be famous by the time I'm dead.
That's right, and they can look back and have a nice article about how famous you are. All right. This is Funny Like Clown Podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth. Guest Scott MaCneil talking about Emo Philips. Keep laughing. Laughter is the best medicine. And we'll see you next week with a new episode. And keep tuning in. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. Tune in Funny Like Clown Podcast. We're growing each week. The numbers are getting bigger. iHeartRadio, we're the best of the best. And who don't like to laugh? See you next time. Bye.
Bye.